Hello and welcome to Take This TV, the television book club podcast where each week we watch an episode or two of our favorite shows and we talk about them with our friends in the fandom. It's you! Oh, hey! How's it going? I'm Carmen and I'm joined by my good friend Kimberly Woods. Hello!
Hey, hot potatoes!
What are we watching this week, Kimberly?
This week we are watching Constellation. And today we are on episode 1, and it's called The Wounded Angel. The Apple TV blurb is, a disaster on board the International Space Station becomes a fight for survival. Jo races to find a way back to Earth before her life support runs out. Henry is concerned about his experiment. The space agencies begin their investigation into the ISS collision.
If that sounds like a lot, it's because it is, and all that happens, and more.
In 1 hour.
So... we were watching this together and we just kind of jotted down things as we were watching it. And I'm so excited to talk about this because the whole time, all I could think was, what is happening?
Yeah.
I was pretty confused.
Yeah. At the beginning, it's like, what is happening? And at the end, it is, what is happening?
Yes. So the show starts off kind of in the future, in the present, I guess. And then we go to a flashback later of events in the past. But by the end of the show, you're like, wait, were those events from the present, or is this all some kind of dream? I don't know.
Yeah, is the main character Jo hallucinating? Is she really back down on Earth, or is she still up, at the International Space Station?
Who knows? I don't.
We start off in the car. She's with her daughter in the back seat. They're in the freezing cold. She's listening to some cassette tape where a woman is muttering about a fire happening, and her daughter is like, what is this cassette tape? What is happening on it? And Jo says she's saying the world is the wrong way around.
Is the tape that she's listening to, the person is saying that there's a fire and it's cutting off the escape pod, but is that what happened? Is she watching or listening to a tape of herself from when she was on the space station and the fire broke out?
It seems like it's herself, yeah.
And so she's lying to her daughter that she's saying the world is the wrong way around.
Yeah.
Oh.
And so we're like, what is happening here? Because we're getting subtitles. We're getting subtitles in the beginning that's telling us, like, what is happening. And then what she tells her daughter is the world is the wrong way around. Which I thought was very cryptic and odd.
Right.
The world is the wrong way around.
It's not something you want to hear your parents say. No. And she's driving along this icy, wintry road, and a car gets behind her. We see it's some kind of police officer, and then she gets really nervous, and especially when the cop turns their sirens on. She feels like it might be for her, but luckily they pass her by, and we're like, "What's happening? Why is she so nervous about the cops?" Yeah.
And they speed to the middle of nowhere to this place that we find out later was their home at some point or something like that. It seems like.
Well, I don't know actually, because maybe
it's hard to tell.
Let's
just put it that way. It's hard to tell, but they make it there. The daughter wants a bedtime story, and Jo hands her daughter this iPad and is like, "Okay, here you go." Daughter turns it on, and it's Jo telling her a bedtime story from the International Space Station.
Yeah, it's really weird because Jo goes to a bookshelf to pick out a story for the kid and then gives her an iPad where she can watch a video of Jo on the space station, which as we were watching it, like, you don't really have much context for anything else that's happening, but it just feels really off in that eerie kind of way.
It feels really bizarre. You're already thinking, okay, is she possessed by an alien? Like this version of Jo? Is this really Jo? What is going on?
Yeah. Beforehand, I only watched one trailer for this. So I don't really know anything about the show. Did you watch a lot of promo stuff?
No.
Okay. So
I know nothing about it, but they capture that feeling of is there another space invader, going along in a rain
from
already?
Outside space. Yeah. Well, one thing I wrote down is when they're in the car on the way to the house, the daughter mentions, "Where's Dad? Mom, where's Dad?" And I was like, did the mom kidnap her daughter and Dad is dead in the trunk? Were you thinking that, or was it just me?
I just thought something is completely off. I was still on the whole train of thinking, is she possessed by some sort of alien right now? What is going on?
Yeah.
She's not behaving like herself.
She gets really cagey when the kid asks about Dad. And we never find out where he is.
We don't find out where he is, and later we find out that while she was on the space station, the daughter, when talking to the dad, is like, I know you and mom are having problems. Like,
Just out of nowhere.
Yeah. We're like, okay, so they were having problems.
I still want you and mom to be friends.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like, oof. Either they're separated or they're divorced or things are not looking good.
No.
And it's gotten to the point where their daughter is definitely taking note of their relationship, essentially being over.
After we get this crazy opening in the beginning, we cut to 5 weeks earlier, which is on the International Space Station.
Everything seems to be going well. Everybody's happy. Jo is FaceTiming her daughter. People are like smiling and having a good time, which is how you know that things are about to go down.
Yeah.
It's not that kind of show.
No. We get a hint of some sort of experiment that is underway, which is containing some sort of state of matter, they say.
A new state of matter.
A new state of matter.
What does that mean?
Jo's like, shrug. But then, as she's like having this lovely time chatting with her daughter on FaceTime, they get struck by something. We don't know what.
Yeah.
And poor Paul gets hit.
I made a note of like, as soon as they were introducing us to the other people on the space station, I was like, Paul's done for. You're like, in like a sci-fi thriller horror kind of show, you can't, being black, you're done for. He's dying first.
So they stuck to that trope. It's like, yep, okay, yep, in true horror story fashion, there goes a black guy.
Yeah, but he was the one who was sort of working on this experiment that NASA really wanted to conduct to discover this new state of matter. So we don't know if that experiment is what caused the accident or not, but during that experiment is when the International Space Station was hit by something.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And so then, Paul's a goner. Our Jo has to go do her spacewalk to survey, what exactly is the problem that's going on, assess the damage for the life support and the electrical systems. And she sees something weird that's tangled in the truss.
Some kind of orange cloth. I gotta get closer and see what it is.
Let's see what it is. And what was it, Carmen?
It was a dead person. It was a dead cosmonaut.
Yeah.
And it looks like, so one of the things that has kind of happened over the course of the first episode is they play around with time a lot. And so this cosmonaut looks like someone who was potentially part of space programs in the 50s, or something like that.
It, yeah, a female Soviet, dead cosmonaut,
or
somehow ended up here and now.
Yeah, so it's really suspicious, and the cosmonaut kind of scares Jo, and she's kind of like floating out into empty space, and her companion comes to pull her back in, and Mission Control asks for the companion to confirm visual on whatever Jo saw, but he's not able to do it. Mm-mm. Is it because the cosmonaut floated off into deep space? Is it because Jo made it up? I don't know.
We don't know. Well, she's the only one who saw it, so she's our narrator, our unreliable narrator.
She is.
So then they get back in the space station.
Paul is dead.
Paul is a goner. There's only 3 people that can leave on the, what is it called? Whatever the
escape pod 1.
Escape pod 1. There's only 3 people that can leave. So Jo volunteers to stay behind and repair the remaining one heroically. It becomes okay, stay behind. You have what was it? 19 hours of oxygen left to get the job done. There's going to be 45 minutes of light and 45 minutes of dark. So make sure you keep that in mind. And that's your goal. It's very Aliens. It feels very like Aliens.
Oh yeah. Man, I didn't even pick up on that, but the vibes were definitely there. Would you have stayed behind?
No.
No. I feel like, guys, we gotta draw straws or something.
No. That's why we love Jo.
One of the astronauts is like, we all have families.
Yeah.
Like,
it's like, it's
okay.
True. Yeah, it's like, please, she volunteered. Let her do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it definitely shows her character, which is she's very, very, very brave.
She is brave.
Would you stay behind, Carmen?
Oh, absolutely not. I mean, first of all, you probably wouldn't catch me up there in the first place. But if I was up there and somebody had to stay behind, I'd like to think that I would be brave and heroic and be like, you all go and I'll stay behind. But I just don't think that that's true. I'd probably be like, we should draw straws or something because I don't want to stay here and die in space.
Yeah.
But Jo decides to stay behind. And while she's making repairs, they let her know that she needs to get back into the broken escape pod to magnetize it, or she won't be able to do so during the night phase. And she may lose some oxygen or something or other like that. So we sort of get this sequence where she's rushing through the pod to get something before she runs out of time for the night or for the day, and she grabs a necklace. Is it her daughter's necklace?
Her daughter's necklace,
okay.
Yeah. Because she's like, make sure that Alice knows I have her necklace, and, Mommy loves her. She wants them to pass some sort of note on to her daughter.
It's really sweet.
Yeah.
And as she's kind of going through the ship, maybe this actually happens earlier, but at one point in the ship, we see that there is a photo or a painting, and we see that there are two people carrying what looks like an angel sitting on some kind of...
and that comes up in the first scene?
Something like that. It's really early on.
Our first scene when they're in that weird shack, we get a glimpse of people carrying an angel.
Mm-hmm. And it's like in the background.
Is happening. Yeah, we're like, that's an interesting painting. It's very eye-catching.
Yeah, what's that all about? I don't know. But so anyway, Jo gets this necklace, gets in the pod, and is waiting for daylight to come around. And while she's waiting, she does a rendering of what she saw, the Cosmonaut, and sends an email out to sort of tell her story of what she saw. Which we'll put a pin in that, because that is also important. So much stuff happened in this hour
so
episode.
Much crazy stuff.
But before daylight comes around, Jo notices that the timer that she set starts to speed up. Mm-hmm. What did you think about that?
It's like glitching out. I don't know. It's very weird. It's like... It made me nervous. She seemed to take it in stride pretty well. I was like, what's happening? Are we seeing this? Is she seeing this?
It was hard to tell. Like, is this something that's like an editing technique to speed up, fast forward time? Or is Jo actually experiencing time moving quicker than normal? But
then when she checked in with her folks, Houston, they seemed to be fine.
Yeah, back to work.
Yeah, everything was normal, so they just skipped over that part. Yeah. Yeah.
So Jo gets back to work. She's fixing the batteries. There's some repairs to the escape pod that she has to fix. They mentioned the batteries is one of the things she's working on. And as she's doing so, her family back on Earth are en route to Mission Control, mm-hmm. Where they'll have a chance to talk to Jo before the day's over. And that's where the daughter is like, well, I know you and Mom aren't doing well. I mean, it's not my business, but...
Please stay friends.
Please stay friends. Can I have 2 Christmases? And while that's happening, Jo starts to hear some weird noises.
Yeah.
And naturally, knowing for a fact, without a shadow of a doubt, that she is the only living person on the space station, she's like, some weird noises. I should go check that out.
Before that happens, when the family's about to talk to her, suddenly the connection is lost.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And it's like, goes out just in time for that. And her daughter, runs off oddly. I don't know where she's going, down several stairwells. And her father's, chasing after her. But, yeah, the connection drops. And then it's about to get dark again. Mm-hmm. It drops oddly before it gets dark. But she goes back into the hatch or whatever to, close herself in. And then we get this creepy camera shot that's towards her hatch. And then we start hearing these weird noises that you're talking about, Carmen.
I thought, the way the camera was moving, I was like, are we seeing from the perspective of some creature? And, the whole time we're watching the show, in my head, I'm like, this isn't the kind of show that has aliens, is it? Are there aliens in the show? Because it feels like a really, serious drama thriller. But then sometimes it's like, is something going to pop out and be like, ooga, ooga, trying to eat her or whatever.
They do such a great job setting that up, though, because they have this experiment on board. So you're just like, oh gosh, is this the experiment gone wrong? Here it comes.
Right, and we don't really know much about it, except for it's some kind of new state of matter. So it's it could be an alien, who knows? But real quick, just sidebar about the little girl. I think that like that actor does a really good job, and I think the writing does a good job of like showing how children process trauma. Because like when her dad tells her that her friend's dad, who was Paul, died, there's like this beat where she just kind of pauses, and then she's like, "What about our bikes? We're just gonna leave our bikes there." And it's like she can't even deal with that because it's just so much.
Yeah.
And I think that like, you know, her dad tells her, because she asks, "Why did you say maybe that mom will come back and instead of for sure that she'll come back?" And the dad says that he doesn't want to lie to her. So I think seeing the signal drop when she goes to talk to her mom, just it seems like she was just overwhelmed, and so she's running away from the situation. And I was like, oh man, that for some reason I was like, that's really sad. But
it is really sad.
Yeah.
And she was sweet enough to give up her bunny to the other girl who lost her dad.
Oh yeah, that was really sweet. Yeah. Kids. So anyway,
back to the creepy sounds.
Back to space. But Joe goes to like investigate this noise.
Opens the hatch. It's still dark, right? It's still dark. During darkness, she opens the hatch, goes out there, starts going towards the thing, and we get the classic "hello." Horror film.
It's like, what? I mean, okay. I guess you're scared, so you're like, hello. This is like, can we get this over with?
And then it transforms from the International Space Station to like a hallway. And suddenly she's like removing her oxygen mask, throwing it on the floor, walking towards some sort of ominous cabinet that has her daughter's necklace hanging on it.
Yeah, it kind of looked like a hallway in a cathedral. Did it look like that to you? Like some kind of church?
I don't know what it was. Or an academic building?
Oh, yeah.
Like, you know.
Something like that.
Something.
So she goes towards this cabinet, this dresser, and her daughter's necklace is on the door. Which isn't where she left it.
Nope.
So the banging is coming from this dresser. And then before she can open it, she turns back around and she's back on the space station.
Yep.
And it's
it
like,
has power.
What? Yeah, and there's gravity.
Yeah.
And so it's like, what is happening?
Yeah. Which we've said several times during this episode. This is seriously like the theme. What is happening? Yeah.
So then we cut back to what we believe is the present, where we kind of started with her in this cabin. And she saw her daughter asleep, but she hears her daughter calling for help outside. So she rushes outside, and she kind of walks around in the snow for a while, and then ends up at the cabin again. And then when she goes inside, the dresser is there again. Yeah.
And can we talk about the weird like lens on the camera that's following her? Because for a moment we get this like double vision of her where there's like two versions of her for a second. Like it's back into one. Yeah, and I was like,
that's so interesting because there was a shot of Henry, the NASA guy, who we haven't talked about at all, but is really important. There's just so much to talk about. Henry, the NASA guy, when they're walking down the hallway, there's a shot of him in like a reflection of him. And it like looks at him as he walks by. And at first I was like, I'm tripping. I didn't see that. But because you mentioned that, I was like, maybe that did happen.
That's so interesting.
I don't know. Add us on socials or comment. Let us know. Did you see it too? Was the Henry thing there? I don't know. Maybe it's just me. I don't know.
I missed that. That's cool.
So anyway, you were saying.
Yeah, so we see the double like thing of her before she walks back into their house.
And when she does, she opens the dresser and her daughter's in there. Like, who looks like she's been in there a while.
And this dresser also has a necklace on it, but it looks slightly different.
It does.
It's reminiscent of her daughter's necklace, but the colors are off. They're like deeper red or something.
Something's off. And her daughter asks her, "Where have you been?" And then just kind of collapses into her mom's arms.
And also the painting we saw in the beginning that was an angel, two people carrying an angel on a stretcher, has now become some sort of skeleton, or you saw like a devil.
Like a devil or a skeleton person. Some kind of creepy corpse ghoul thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So things are not what they appear to be.
No.
But like, what does it mean? We don't know.
I don't know. Let's talk about Henry a second.
Yes, let's.
So the experiment Henry is in charge of, and he seems to be super invested into it. At some point during the show, we hear him say to the head of the European space station?
Yes.
Something like, it can help you, me, my brother. What is happening?
My brother. I need to help him.
We found a state of matter that can only exist in zero gravity, he tells her.
Mm-hmm.
So we're like, okay, what is this? And secondly, also, why is Henry taking some sort of red and yellow pill? Why is that same woman who he's telling this can help you? She's also taking the same red and yellow pill. At first I thought it was just stress. So it was some, like, anti-anxiety medicine, but
there was that moment when Joe mentions that she saw a cosmonaut, that the head of the European Space Association, I think her name was Irene or something like that, she looks like she knows something. Mm-hmm. Like, everyone else seems surprised, but she seems like she knows something. And so maybe her and Henry have some kind of history with whatever's happening, and that's what the pills are about. Ooh. So, I don't know.
Some sort of dark history they're trying to cover up.
Maybe. Who knows? But so Henry is really adamant about getting this experiment because they have 6 seconds of the recording before the accident happens, and he says it's going to change the game. Mm-hmm. The rest of the council from the other organizations around the world are like, no way, we have to save everybody. Their lives are more important. I'm always like, I think it's always a good time when America's the villain.
Yeah.
You love to see it. But
we have the whole science versus people.
Yeah. But what's his face? Sergey, I think is his name, gives Joe the order to retrieve the data. But he does throw in at the end, like, don't risk your life for it.
And we know from the initial part of the show that she does have it, at least whatever version of her that is, that she does have this experiment, and she, like, puts it in some sort of shack. I don't know what she's doing with it in the beginning.
Yeah, so nobody knows that she has it, but that's probably why she was nervous of the cops following her, because she has this, like, contraband, or she's stolen it or something like that, and people may want it back.
But what does it mean?
What does it mean?
That was wild. Yeah, I'm excited to see what happens next. How about you, Carmen?
You know what? I'm as hooked on this show as I was before. I have more questions than I did before, but I'm excited to watch the next episode and find out what happens next.
So many questions. Well, thank you all for joining us. Please remember to subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. Leave us a review. Tell us what you thought on social media. We're at Take This TV on Instagram and TikTok. Thank you for watching. Welcome to the club, and remember, it's dangerous to watch TV alone.